Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. Let's get started. So, hello and welcome. My name is Allegra Elson. My pronouns are she, her, and I serve as Director of Training and Development with Vibrant Pittsburgh. We're so excited to share our summer speaker session with you today, and we will be with Achieva and talking about the INVEST project. With us is my colleague Matthew Yohe, him pronouns and programs and services manager. He will be monitoring the chat and adding to the discussion. And in a moment, we will welcome our guest facilitators, Amber Westwood and Jack Butler, along with assistance from Kathleen Lukmilis, OVR Invest Project Manager, and Nicole Fink, Person-Centered Coordinator with Invest. Today's session is part of our summer speaker series. It brings together all of you in an interactive and participatory atmosphere to collaborate and deepen knowledge. If you could, please take a moment to say hello and introduce yourself in the chat. This session is being recorded and will be available on our website and YouTube channel. Please feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat. We will endeavor to get to them during our session. And if we don't, we will answer them in the follow-up email that will be sent out. We also know that there were some questions from a few of you when you registered, so we're working to get to those questions too. Vibrant Pittsburgh. Vibrant Pittsburgh's mission is to accelerate the business community towards equitable, inclusive, and diverse workplaces, creating a future-forward region. Vibrant Pittsburgh envisions a future where Pittsburgh employers offer inclusive workplaces that foster prosperity and belonging, making them a top choice for people of all backgrounds. As with any session and discussion, it will be participatory, and we ask you to embrace our following community agreements. Seek to understand. Actively listen before responding. Use I statements. Speak from your own experiences and feelings. This avoids generalizing about other people and communities that are not your own. Respect privacy. Respect the stories other people share and request permission before sharing them with others outside of our space. And with that, respect where everyone is on their learning journey today. And share the air. Make room for all voices to be heard, accept all modes of communication. Modes of communication today include use of the chat, unmuting, polling, time to take notes, asking questions, and also, as noted in the chat, if you need to use the closed captions, we have enabled those for today too. I'll review our agenda very quickly. We started with some very brief intros, but you're going to have a chance to meet Amber and Jack and Kathleen and Nicole very soon. I'll have a few questions for you to level set, and then we'll turn things over to Amber and the team. We do have time for Q&A. As always, feel free to drop those questions in the chat as they occur to you. I want to do a very quick level set on about language that you're here today and some notes on language. So when we talk about the word accommodations, keep in mind that workplace accommodation involves making specific adjustments for modifications to job duties, work environments, or policies to ensure individuals with disabilities have equal opportunities for employment and can perform their job duties effectively. Accommodations are not a favor and they are not a complaint. It is something that individuals can ask for. And this is everything from assisted technology to modifying work schedules. Next is accessibility. Accessibility is the commitment to ensuring that all individuals, regardless of ability or background, can fully participate in all programs and activities by providing equitable access across the full range of human abilities and experiences. And disability inclusion. We're just wrapping up Disability Pride Month. So disability inclusion in the workplace is a broader concept that focuses on creating a culture and an environment where people with disabilities are fully integrated and valued as equal members of the workforce. This involves not only providing accommodations and ensuring accessibility, but also fostering an inclusive workplace that celebrates, promotes, respects, and actively involves individuals with disabilities in decision-making processes, activities, opportunities for career advancement. So to summarize, accommodation deals with specific adjustments for individuals. Accessibility focuses on ensuring access to physical and digital spaces for everyone. Disability inclusion encompasses creating a supportive and inclusive work environment for all employees, including those with disabilities. So I wanted to set level set on our vocabulary that you'll hear today also. Okay, audience members, coming up, we have a Slido, and this is a word cloud. You can use the QR code with your cell phone. You can join at slido.com and use that number. But we'd like to take a moment to get your thoughts of what words or thoughts come to mind when you hear the name Achieva. So take a moment, words or thoughts, when you hear the name Achieva. Give you about 30 more seconds. Right now, these are all unique words. And now that we have a bigger word, the word advocacy, that means more of you have put that word in. So about 20 more seconds here. Okay. So we see advocacy as the biggest word. So many people have chosen that word. We see achievement, assistance, service provider, accommodations, youth, employment, people first, job coach, disabilities, and also inclusion. So this will give the Achieva team an idea of also of what the audience members know about Achieva, and also inclusion. Inclusion has grown also. So thanks, everyone. So this one is just a quick question. Do you know about sub-minimum wage? Yes, no, maybe. And again, this if you have Achieva, I'm sorry, if you have the Slido open, then it'll automatically go to this question. So I'll give you about 30 seconds on this question. Okay. Right, so interestingly, oh, right, we're getting a little neck and neck between the yes and the no. About 40% with yes, 40% with no, and 20% with maybe. Oh, no is back in the running there. So, all right. We're going to learn about this today. So thank you for that. And then just one more poll for you. Are you familiar with congregate settings? And about 10 more seconds to answer here. All right, so the no answer is a little higher, 64% to yes of 27%. And I'll be honest, when we were preparing and having these discussions, I could say that I would be in the no category. Also, maybe I know it by a different name, but just the idea of congregate settings, I did not know about that. So, all right, thank you, everyone. I think that this gives the Achieva team a good idea of who's in the room, and I'm really excited to turn things over to Amber Westwood and her team and to talk about the PA Invest project. So, Amber, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Allegra. And thank you everyone for that, for participating in those polls. Those are super interesting to see who's tuning in today and some of the things that you find that you want to get out of today's webinar. I'm not surprised about some of the answers. It's definitely an education piece that has been missing in the disability sector here. Just to go to the next slide, I do encourage questions in the chat, and we will definitely get to those and answer those. This is just going to be an overview of who is Achieva, about Achieva. We're a nonprofit agency that provides a wide range of disabilities and services that include a lot of the things that you mentioned in that first question. Under our Achieva umbrella, We were founded in 1951. Some of our, next slide, please.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
That's okay. So some of our, the ARC of Greater Pittsburgh and Erie, they provide and focus on the advocacy, protecting the rights, and promoting inclusion for people with intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities. We have Achieva support. That is our residential and community-based supports to help people with disabilities live independently and participate fully in the community or their communities. We also have our Achieva resource team, which handles our business resources. That would be what keeps us up and running. Our Achieva early intervention delivers services to infants and toddlers, birth to age 3 with developmental delays or disabilities, supporting families in the early years. Sometimes that's one that people don't know a ton about, and that's something we definitely want to bring up to the audience today, that is available. We also have the Achieva Trust, and they handle all of the trust and financial services, including special needs trust, or helping families plan for the future of their loved ones. And what I'd like to touch most on today for the Invest project is the Achieva Business Services. And the Achieva Business Services partners with businesses to create inclusive workplaces to help recruit, hire, and support employees with disabilities in your company. Some of the things that, I want to talk about the market. It's a really overlooked talent pool of people with disabilities. Sometimes, people overlook how much talent that we can bring into our employers. And it's helping them and bringing them on board is a win-win for both the individual and the businesses. So at Achieva, we do help businesses tap into this workforce. And we help team up with company's HR team and support every step in the process, from recruiting, hiring, onboarding, training. And the goal is to make sure that the employees with disabilities are set up for success. Also with the employer, we want them to be successful as well. Something else we also do when we partner up with companies is, we help them with the public funding and resources that they might not know is available to them as an employer. And so it just doesn't stop at the hiring phase. Next slide. So just a little bit about the Invest project. Pennsylvania was one of 14 states awarded this grant, and those states are listed there. As you see, it's former Senator Casey sponsored a bill that allocated it. There's the cost of the grant in Pennsylvania, and the time frame is, you can see it goes till 2027. So it gives us about 2 more years on this grant. Next slide. And so the purpose, ultimately the purpose of this grant would be to increase competitive integrated employment in CIE and other quality outcomes for people with disabilities earning subminimum wage, in subminimum wage, or contemplating subminimum wage. I say that's the ultimate goal because, as you'll learn later in the slides when Jack Butler talks, there's a lot of other parts to Invest to make somebody successful in their position. It's not just going out and finding a job and saying, oh, somebody's in a job with my company. It's finding the right job, finding the right person, and making those accommodations necessary and the follow-up. And he'll go into more detail about the right fit and how we come about that through Invest. Also, increasing employer commitments to inclusive hiring, providing transformative support to increase employment. Next slide. So who is eligible for Invest? This is on the participation side. So there's 2 parts to Invest that we're going to discuss today to avoid confusion. One side is the participation side, who's eligible, who wants to work, who's interested in, who's at risk for subminimum wage. And then the other side is the employer side. So this is an overview of the whole program, and then we'll go into more details about each side. So who is eligible for Invest through the participation side? It's anybody who is at risk for subminimum wage, contemplating subminimum wage, or has participated in subminimum wage employment in the past. A resident of Pennsylvania and somebody who has a disability. It seems very broad, right? Mm-hmm. Next slide. So what does subminimum wage mean? So I spoke with somebody recently, and he said, "Oh, sub-minimum wage means a server, somebody who serves as a waitress or a waiter or a server, and they get paid, two something an hour, but they also get their tips." And I kind of looked at him and I thought, huh, maybe sub-minimum wage isn't something that people are familiar with. But sub-minimum wage 100% does exist in Pennsylvania, and it is any wage that's below. Now, the servers don't count in this category. We're talking for people with disabilities in segregated work environments. So I had to explain what sub-minimum wage meant. So it is a term that could be really confusing, but it is a wage set below the standard minimum wage, and in Pennsylvania, that's below the 7.25. Commonly used in segregated work environments, such as sheltered workshops. And if you want to put in the chat, if you have questions about sheltered workshops, we'd be happy to answer those as well. Under Section 14C of the Fair Labor Standards Act, employers are approved by the U.S. Department of Labor that they may pay subminimum wage. And this applies to workers with documented disabilities or mental disabilities. And that would be an environment where there's a workshop and people are making much less money for a week than somebody without a disability would be working doing somewhat of the same job. Next slide. So our project partners in the INVEST project for Western Pennsylvania are OVR, Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, ODP, Office of Developmental Programs, and PA Family Network, along with Achieva. Achieva was awarded the grant on the western side of Pennsylvania, and on the eastern side of Pennsylvania, we're working with CIS and KenCrest. Next slide. So I'm going to jump into the employer benefits right now. And that is, I think, what we all want to hear about is a designated employer. What is a designated employer? It refers to a business that actively collaborates with the INVEST team to provide competitive integrated employment opportunities for people with disabilities. So this is a little bit of what I spoke about earlier with business services and partnering. This isn't really anything new for us. We treat the business as our customer, as a designated employer. The business not only contributes to more inclusive workforce, but again, access to motivated, skilled talent pool, which Jack will discuss how we get those talented individuals and ready for positions to work at the organization. This is all through INVEST. Next slide. So this is I'm going to go into detail with each of these. The INVEST designated employer benefits, integrated work culture, paid on the job contracts, customized employment, peer and family supports, and the employment liaisons. Next slide. So I'm going to touch first on the financial incentives. So under INVEST, the employer receives 100% wage reimbursements for 1 year of employment for each person they hire that comes through INVEST. So your normal OJT or on-the-job training contract would be 90 days. And through this, it's 100% for 1 year. So some of those benefits are risk-free hiring, cost savings, that's your labor cost. Obviously, you're getting reimbursed. The preliminary engagement and the evaluation phase. We don't just put people in jobs, we stay there with them. We're in constant communication with the employer. This is where we go into the next financial incentive, is 2 embedded employees integrated at the employer site. This includes our employees that are employed with us, but integrated into your HR, integrated into your company. So the cost analysis here, we have your salary. The salary is covered. It's covered. You get 2 employees, and you don't have their salary on your payroll. It's on ours. Reduced recruitment cost. We find people for their jobs that you're looking for, and we help recruit them. We help onboard them, and we help retain them. Lower training cost. We train. Increased operational efficiency equals cost avoidance. Next slide. So we have a whole slide, a whole presentation that goes over what embedded positions are. And because of our time frame, and I want to make sure we get to some of your questions, we made this into one slide. And these 2 embedded positions are so important to the employer because we have people embedded into your organization. They know your culture, they know your natural supports, they have meaningful relationships, they're able to see the environment, what might work, what might not work, and they work alongside the employee that is working in these positions. So our inclusion liaison is an Achieva representative integrated into the HR process, uh, facilitating the hiring and onboarding. It doesn't stop there. It's ongoing employer support, employee retention, ADA assessments, helping secure transportation. A lot of times we have people in rural areas or they don't have transportation. We have a team that helps secure transportation to make sure they show up on time, to see if there's any problems. We help with on-the-job training, the OJT contracts, the reimbursements. That all falls under the inclusion liaison, which helps free up some of the HR components that your company as an employer might not even, one, know you have, and two, honestly, everybody's being pushed in different directions. They probably don't have time. So a lot of times we hear companies don't even take advantage of those reimbursements because one, they don't know, or two, they just don't have the staff to allocate that to. And another great embedded position is, like somebody put earlier, job coach. Well, right, this is our embedded employment specialist. This is an individual that comes in and has the ongoing assistance to assure success and retention of employees. This is high level learning every job. We have Sheets as one of our designated employers. So our embedded employment specialist knows every job that everybody does at the Sheets distribution center. So at any time, she can be contacted and help out with somebody who needs assistance. And she's not running to 5 different other locations of different employers. So she knows she's embedded into Sheets. She knows what Sheets expects. And she can follow up as an employee of Sheets, as a representative of Sheets. Integrated work culture, I mean, that's, enhancing team creativity, problem solving, innovative solutions. Next slide. Peer and family supports. So PA Family Network is one of our partners as well. And sometimes the employer doesn't necessarily know that these resources are available, but all of the Invest participants and employees do have access to PA Family Network, and which I think is extremely important when working. If somebody should need extra support, that is available to them. The employer would get disability employment inclusion training. As much as everybody thinks we all know it all, we all can learn from other people. And this is helpful in customized training modules to educate the team that maybe somebody needs to stand on the left side of somebody instead of the right side, and explaining why, and maybe somebody has more functionality, facing a doorway instead of their back towards the door. So that would just be some employer education, some staff education. That's where you find some of your natural supports as well. And then customized employment, matching roles that suit your job seeker skills, improve social interaction and engagement. Next slide. So I am going to just plug in a little bit about employers that are leading the way with Achieva and with the Invest project as well. We have Sheets. I'm gonna talk about, mention Brittany here. She was one of our first Invest participants who was looking for a job. She's looked for employment for 8 years. You can see her with computer screens, and she wanted to work in an office in computers, and Sheets had a need. They didn't know necessarily at the time that that this was a position. They were taking people off of the distribution floor to help print the name tags that you see across all of Sheets. And Brittany was very good with computers, good with spreadsheets, good with the laser printer they have there. She did a job shadow, and boom, there's a great fit. And so every time you walk into a Sheet store and you see a nameplate, she's printed that. It's not just about the food industry or cleaning, or there are some really great individuals with disabilities who can do just what you and I can do. They just need some accommodations and some people to help them out to get that right fit. And that's certainly something that Invest can help with and help employers with as well. And Giant Eagle's been a long partner of Achieva's. They've been across the board hiring individuals um, in doing many different things, and they've actually recently somebody applied for a position as a pharmacy tech. So it's really wide open, and it's really great to see that employers are starting to see, the possibilities and are open to, receiving the help and letting us partner with them and helping making their workforce inclusive. So with this, I'm going to transfer everything over to Jack Butler, who's going to talk a little bit more about the participation side of Invest. So thank you.
Thank you, Amber.
Thanks, Amber, and good afternoon. As Amber stated, my name is Jack Butler. My pronouns are he, him. I'm an adult male, white male with very short hair, black hair with some gray, and sometimes I wear glasses. I take them off at times as well, so I'm taking them off right now. A black blazer, and in the background I have what looks to be like a badge almost. And I'm seeing some faces in the crowd here today. One in particular also carries this badge. It's a Charting the Life Course Ambassador badge. So, I wanted to highlight that that's red and purple and green and blue. And, I'm also an adult male who has defined by a medical provider a pretty extreme case of ADHD. So, I oftentimes will disclose that in particular, when I'm, sharing my story. And, I have to reflect on the word cloud. Advocate, advocate seemed to pop out of that word cloud. There was another word, that popped, which was inclusion. Two, words that are really important to us. When I think about advocate and advocacy in general, I have to reflect on my career. I started at Achieva in '95. I was 21 years old. 30 years later, here I am. And our mission, as Amber read it, always included family, people with disabilities, some different words, words evolve as we know. But, one word, changed recently that to me was a big game changer. And that's advocating for people with disabilities to now advocating with people, who have disabilities. And that's a huge change. Another thing that has changed during my career is the way that we support people in with identifying a job, their vocation, even vocational training. The word question was asked, what congregate means. And when it comes to congregate, I guess I would just use myself as an example. If we were, to place me or put me in a classroom or training or vocational center, where I was learning a trade with people who were like me that had ADHD, I would just be, working with others who have ADHD, maybe all male as well. So I can't imagine that, 110 people have ADHD in a big warehouse, big workshop, and only two jobs, only two roles, being provided. And we did that for years. I can't go and onto these slides without saying we did that. 10 years ago, we started what we called a vocational transformation. And, I reflect on this quote from Randy Lewis, a book that to me was the handbook, for our vocational transformation. But engaging in real person-centered planning with each person that used our supports, was, really the vehicle. But one of the quotes that Randy provided us, and we networked with him, read his book, was what's the use of having power if you don't use it to do good? And, I think this is a powerful statement for corporate leadership, authority, to think about to advance equity and inclusion. When we were paying people pennies on the dollar, segregating them, in an environment, we had walls that, kept them, from their community and kept others out, and when we realized that, we did something about it. And that started, vocational transformation, that led up to, where we're at today, not only with Invest, but also, with our person-centered thinking, planning, and action, a big part of what my day-to-day standard looks like. One last quote from Randy, regarding equal standards and real opportunity. Their goal at Walgreens, he was a VP at Walgreens, was to create an inclusive workplace where disabled people could thrive with equal pay and conditions and be held to the same performance standards as their peer. And I think this is really important for people to hear, that, this isn't about, charity. This is about contributing meaningfully and being compensated for that contribution. It took people 30 years to transition out of our workshops, meaning they retired or, passed away. And there were plenty of people in their 70s and 80s using this pre-vocational method. So I wanted to share the why. Before, I talk about charting the life course, which, again, maps out, supports that are meaningful to and for, the person that we're engaging with. There's some words that we use here that can be very confusing. Amber covered some of them. I thank her for doing that, so I don't have to do it. And I'm going to try and just use plain language, although you see in front of you, or you'll hear me say integrated resource team. It's a meeting, where the person, that the meeting's about is present, and they're organizing. They may be facilitating, and or we might be helping them facilitate their meeting. And I'm emphasizing that because that is a change in our system. Sometimes meetings took place without the person being present. One of our board members and esteemed colleagues, Jody Badger, highlights nothing about me without me. She highlights that very frequently, and it's something that I have to remind myself and my teammates as well. We meet monthly, sometimes every other week, with a person and their team as they design it, in person, remotely. And there's some trainings that we provide as well, offline, excuse me, and you can run down the list. One that's not there that I'm working with a gentleman on is personal appearance, which is very subjective and looks different in every role and every opportunity. Benefits counseling is, a big piece, because assets can influence a person's ability to receive caregivers and or transportation. So transportation is also, a resource that we plan around and identify, and engage in what we call mapping resources. Although I work in Pittsburgh, all the areas where Achieva provides supports, including Erie County. I live in Westmoreland County, a very rural community called Ligonier, Pennsylvania. And, those resources, with regards to transportation and even accessible opportunities for people, where there's curb cuts and elevators at the businesses. They're not rare, but they're definitely few and far between because it's an older community. The infrastructure is older. We'll move on to, the next slide. Person-led planning for valued roles. I thought Amber did a really nice job of, talking about, there are many directions that a person might take when it comes to employment. It doesn't necessarily land them at a job as a hostess, although that's a very traditional job, or a greeter at Sam's Club, although that can be a very valued role, for, the participant or the person that we're planning with. Not all roads, and no offense to Sheets, no offense to Giant Eagle, although When we go up to Altoona, we see a big sign that says all roads lead to Sheets. Not all roads lead to Sheets. And that's a fact when it comes to, people, that are planning and visioning with us. That's a big part of what we do, what they want, what they don't want, and then identifying what's in their way. Like I had already covered, it could be, benefit issues. It could be transportation limits. It could be that they need money to buy clearances for a child care position or clothes. So we look at ways that we can, pay, for those items, procure those items. Sometimes that's through the grant. Sometimes it's through their eligible funding. I snapped this, or had somebody snap this photo of me and Erin Kelly. I'm using her first and last name because she's an author. Signed my book, The Mick and Me. It's the third book that she published, and she did the signing at an event that we had recently for Invest at the Altoona Kerr baseball game. So it was awesome engaging with her. We've engaged with her, and she's given me permission to share her story. It's a powerful one, and I don't have time to do it justice, but I will give you this. When we first started working with her, the thought of working at Sheets, what was a thought for sure. As we started to learn about, her book and, now her third book being published, it shifted the whole conversation. It shifted it towards, marketing that book. As we were talking, somehow, some way, it went back to where she was living, and it turned out that, and I can identify with this, as a first responder, a volunteer fireman, as well as a person who lives in areas that may flood. Many streams in Ligonier. Well, turns out she lives near a stream, and when the water gets high, when it rains, she finds herself barricaded in the back of her house, her and her mom, in her electric wheelchair. And how can we talk about, a job at Sheets or marketing her book when she's not safe in the environment where she lives? And although she writes about it, she blogs about it, there is still an unmet need. And when we're doing our good work and real person-centered thinking and planning, we're identifying all the needs, and these are barriers that may keep her from the good work that she does with writing, or from a job or a valued role in one of her volunteer positions. So I wanted to share that with you because I think it's important to learn, and for you all to know that it isn't just about employment. It's about food insecurities. It's about health support needs. It's about housing insecurities. And, this is one way to tighten up lines of communications with all entities, and bring in people, that can really help us plan forward. Our wraparound supports is designed to empower, aligning with the person's vision for a future where they're valued and not defined by charity. Next slide, please. A little bit more about the integrated resource team. Some pieces that I haven't, shared is just the who. Again, defined by the person, but many times it helps if somebody that loves, admires the person, somebody that's not paid to be there, as part of that planning session that we call integrated resource team meeting. It's an opportunity there, to keep open communication to ensure that the job seeker's voice remains central. Various counselors that are associated normally with funding streams and the disability, world. So I won't get into all of that, but, I will now, advance to the next slide. Charting the life course, again, is something that really encompasses all areas of life. I always say all domains, all life stages, and all ages. It's person-centered planning isn't new, to the disability community, but I think at some point, it really lost its ability to live and breathe. I can remember presenting, to our stakeholders, our staff people, or the people that really deliver, that are the most important part in the support paradigm, and, deliver the supports, that, are important to a person and for a person. And, I remember talking about our transformation, and as we were closing down all of our workshops, we had 7 at the time. We were, talking about our why, much like, I started off today, and I can recall a person saying, we've already done person-centered plans. We've done this, because they were asking how we were going to support people without this large workshop congregate facility where there were a couple jobs that, people would perform. And, again, my answer was person-centered planning. And, they asserted that they had done it. And, this person was, pretty serious that, they've done it and it doesn't work. And, I said, I'd love to see the plan, and work with the person. She said, I have the plan right here. And on the plan, it said, we'll just say the person's name is Bob. Bob wants to work at Walmart, and, wants a job in his community. And it was a 10-year-old plan. And I asked her, where's Bob at now? Well, he's in the workshop still. So, there might have been visioning. We do that in the IRTs. We do that in our meetings. There might have been planning done. It was on the paper, good paper there. But where was the action? Where was the execution? And if that wasn't a good fit for the person, what were the barriers that kept the person from that job, making it not a good fit? Was it natural support? Was there a need, for, coworkers that, might be able to be aware, of disability and some of those things that we all struggle with. For me, it's focus. For me, it's, being interested in everything, because again, of my ADHD. So, really building that awareness in businesses is what we've had a lot of success with what Amber leads, with business services, getting the buy-in from Giant Eagle and stakeholders there. And, it really just started with, having, a board member who was affiliated with Giant Eagle that was interested in supporting us with, our cause and our movement, from one way of supporting people to another way, from community presence, just having a facility there in the community to community belonging. I know I talked to you a little bit about that yesterday, Allegra. I'm going to be off next week, and I hope Amber misses me. I hope she's like, hey, Jack's not here. I wish he was here to, shed some light on this, or he has a unique way of looking at things, right? Diverse thought, it can change, the whole momentum. It can change the whole trajectory of a plan. And that's what we look for. One last Randy Lewis quote. I remember him saying, when you have, a disability provider, that's not bought in, that's not hiring, diverse workers and, really, promoting growth and value. It's like Jurassic Park without the dinosaurs. And, I had to take a look around, the business that I spent, again, during those days, when we were involved in transformation, 20 years of my life. And how do we do that? Is it just making people feel comfortable with, sharing their story as I did? Is it then, recruiting people in other areas of the community that we haven't reached? So to me, the life course really, plots out, a trajectory, that leads to, the good life for all. It's in line with our vision, which is, supporting people and leading lives of personal significance. And you're seeing right in front of you, what's significant to me, as a person. My family's on that raft, in that picture. We use a one-page description. When people agree to using the one-page description, no one is obligated to using any of the tools that we provide. We'll make up new ones. We really want to innovate in this space, but understanding, what people admire about me, understanding what is important to me, understanding that I also need help. I need Amber. She's behind, the curtain. She does all the reports. She's sharing all the data. This is a demonstration project. So, this data is really, really important. Much, of this project is, from what I understand, Definitely not the grant director. I didn't write it, but it's modeled off of some of the approaches that we took, at Achieva. And again, understanding all of our roles, within Invest, has been over the last year, very, very eye-opening and fulfilling. So, I leave you with a one-page, description, and, kick it back to Allegra or Amber. And thank you for listening to me today. You can reach out at any time, and we'll share the playbook. We'll, meet, with any provider that wants to do this, any business that's open, to, really, leveling out, that our community. So, all people, who have disabilities have opportunities in employment and where they live. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Jack. Thank you, Amber. And what I'm going to do now is put up your contact, excuse me, the contacts that we have here. We have phone numbers and also email. I'm noticing the emails are a little difficult to read, at least on my screen. Just so you know, everyone, we will send out a follow-up email with all of this information and contact information. But now we do have time for questions. I'm going to leave this slide up just for a moment as you take down this information, but we will send it out again to all of you. And I have some questions and some thoughts, but I do want to hold for the audience and see what questions are, going to come from our audience. But then I, as always, I have some questions for you. And I do believe that we also want to share this last part of Achieva's deck also. So I'll leave that up for a moment. I'll let you take a moment to think about your questions, and I'll think about mine. Amber, if there's anything you wanted to add to Jack's portion, I'm happy to hear that, and also invite Kathleen or Nicole to chime in. But I'm going to see what our audience has in terms of questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody and thank Byron Pittsburgh for allowing us to come and talk, and for everybody tuning in to learn more. We do believe that everyone deserves the opportunity to contribute their talents in the workplace. And we're just ready to help people take that next step. And anything we can do to help. If you have questions, if you want to just say, hey, Amber, we're not ready for, to be a designated employer, but we want to learn more about how we can partner, or we want to learn more about how you do things or how we can do things. We are open to that. We encourage it. You can learn a lot just from, blankly, adding questions, telling us, hey, what do you think about this? I mean, we had a couple great questions come over prior to this presentation. We came together as a group, fully prepared to reach out and answer those questions to you one-on-one. I think every company is different. Every employer is different, just like every participant that comes through is different. So everything that we can't focus on one thing. It's universal. It's not one specific thing. It's not necessarily even a process. It's an end goal, and our goal, it doesn't end there. We build on that. So I just want to thank everybody for their being open-minded.
And Amber, if I may, you hit on something, whether intentional or not, that I think it's important to share. We're working with a guy in a man in Altoona, and his family owns a pizza shop, right? And we're doing all this engagement, doing all this planning. He doesn't want to, work at the pizza shop. He wants to work at Sheets or another place in his community. And what was really neat was, I forget who had the idea, was that they did need workers at this pizza shop. So one of the Invest participants that we're planning with, that's his wheelhouse. That's what he enjoys, and he's in the Altoona community. So we were able to match him up, with this pizza shop. And like you said, Amber, it's not a designated employer, but I forget what you call those partners, but definitely a partner, an ally, right? I know that you use that term at Vibrant Pittsburgh, and I think that if we get that out of this meeting today, it would be wonderful, and anything more. But we just need more allies. Yeah. So thank you for letting me interrupt there.
Yeah. So we do have some time for some of the questions that we received. I think one of the things that struck me, and you know, and this also taps into my own unconscious bias, is that I think we have some of us have a certain idea of what people with disabilities look like, and what people with disabilities are able to do in the workplace. And I think that this program and working with employers can help dispel, I think, that myth a little bit. And also, you know, so I'm wondering, Amber or Jack, what conversations have you had with employers who maybe have said, "Oh, I've never employed a person with a disability. Are you sure they can do the job?" I'm wondering if you've had those kind of conversations, and how this program helps to dispel maybe some of the myths or unconscious bias that we hold about people with disabilities.
I mean, I'll tell you, I don't have a ton of employers that question
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
To me personally, they may do it behind the scenes,
Okay.
but to me personally, and through Invest, what I've really, really, really enjoyed with this Invest project is that person-centered and the IRT, that what Jack was talking about.
Hmm.
It's not an intake, it's not your traditional, you know, somebody has OBR services, so we meet and we find them a job. It's not that simple, and not that that's simple at all. That's not simple.
Yeah.
But we help somebody find the right fit, but we follow up with it because we're able to.
Hmm.
Because of this funding, and because of our commitment, and you know, the more one-on-one, and the team, our team is able to do that because we have embedded supports in the company. So we're able to see the environment, integrate ourselves into that. I mean, it would be hard even for us to go to another location every day and not really know the culture,
Hmm.
the natural supports, because it does change. When you're working somewhere like Giant Eagle, you might be working with 5 different people all the time. And if you're a job coach, and you know, job coaches have it tough. They have a lot of people that they're helping with employment supports, and they're helping them find jobs through embedded supports and the inclusion liaison. We do have that constant communication with the employer, so it helps to educate,
Hmm.
which I think is so important.
Hmm. Great, great. Thanks. Thank you, Amber.
And let me, be quick here and take that to a different, you know, from a different perspective. And, we talked about this yesterday, I believe, at Allegra, about, words matter. And, you hear this jargon being thrown around, but, like, and I'm going to use some of it right now. So hold on for a second. Like higher functioning. Is this guy higher functioning? I need your higher functioning ones to, come to our plant and do this. I was called higher functioning ADHD at the ripe age of 45 when I finally got the diagnosis. What does that even mean? Lower functioning. So I think it's like putting those labels aside first. We always say, or I always say, if you ask a fish to climb a ladder, it's going to flop all around, right? Put it in water, watch it swim. So I think getting past some of those barriers in language, I started running these ultra marathons, OCs, which are these obstacle course Tough Mudders. And I remember going to, a leader at the YMCA, and I was just like, I think people with disabilities could engage in this, and what we need is a prototype, right? And then they need to meet that prototype. And I'm like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that right now. And I mean, I know that's not, related directly to your questions about businesses, but I really do think it starts with the language that we're using, the way we engage with people, and the way that we promote high expectations. Look, this guy is really, really good at this job. This person is really, really good at, the computer, engraving. Would that be of value to you? So I think a lot of the times, and, I learned that from people like John Kuhn, who I can see on on the top of the screen here, who, really had a knack for doing something that we call customizing, and he's worked with, employers in doing that. So thank you for listening.
Yeah. No, I think you bring up a great point about vocabulary too. Even, when people talk about skilled labor versus unskilled labor, in my opinion, all labor is skilled, all work is skilled, and we all have different skills that we bring to the job. So I think it's important, just as you brought up, Jack, high functioning, low functioning. Let's push that away and talk about, can the person do the job, and what supports do they need, and what other supports they need to continue to get to work and to be able to do the job also. And that's some of the supports that the Invest Project provides. One question that we did get in anticipation of this session was, how does the Invest Project align with or build upon broader disability rights legislation such as the ADA or WIOA? And I don't know if that's an answer that you want to, start the answer and then say we're going to have, a longer answer in our follow-up email, but I wanted to put that question out. I know you had time to prepare an answer for that question.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to have Kathleen
Sure.
touch on that.
Mhm.
And then we will definitely reach out directly with, some more specifics.
Sure.
Okay. About rehab. This is such a great question. It's kind of hard to answer because there's so many ways that it aligns with the ADA and WIOA. And also employment first is essential in our collaboration. So everything OVR does is under WIOA. WIOA is, OVR is one of the 4 main areas of focus for WIOA. So they're very much involved in helping us make sure that we're serving people with disabilities in the right way as it relates to employment services. ADA, we just nonstop. We care about people's rights. We care about them belonging. Like Jack said, people with disabilities have a right and a place to be in our wider communities. There's all of those benefits, and then there's the law. But Jack's put it this way before too, that we just believe that it's right that people with disabilities are more included in our communities and in our workforces. So the law is there, and that's helpful and ideal, but it does go beyond that. It's the spirit of it. And then employment first. If you're not familiar, it is interesting to look up in PA. It's a law and it's a philosophy. The law is that we spend public money for public services to get results, with a priority being competitive, integrated employment. And so everything in this grant is designed to do that. Those laws and regulations don't regulate the subminimum wage certificates, but they do give good guidance about when those certificates should be used, and some of the changes that WIOA has suggested and made for youth with disabilities will kind of limit the use of those subminimum wage certificates to promote the supports and services that are available now to help somebody with even the most complex disability work in their community. So I guess I'm just summarizing that it aligns in so many ways, and I think that it enhances it, and that we're promoting the spirit and the law of these things. And when we think about the ADA, and employers are thinking about ADA, we don't think people are out here, trying to specifically not be inclusive. We think that employers sometimes don't have all the information to feel comfortable about diversifying their workplace or hiring with somebody with a disability. So we're here to give you the information you need to do that, to feel comfortable doing that, and not to catch anyone doing anything wrong. We want to show you we think this is possible and we can help support it.
Yeah. Thanks, Kathleen. I think that's a really important point that we don't believe that employers are setting out to not be inclusive. It just is a lack of information. And as Amber also said, a lack of time, maybe lack of staff to be able to, to work with people on this. Excuse me. I'm sorry, everyone. So we're getting close to the 1 o'clock hour. And I know that, if you have more questions, please drop them in the chat or send us an email about that. Wanted to highlight the biggest barriers to competitive integrated employment for individuals with disability is that limited awareness or understanding among employers, a lack of access to transportation, inadequate support services or accommodations. And then, really, you've probably already guessed the answer to this is all of the above. And from what I have heard today, the Invest Project is addressing all of these issues that are barriers. And we really encourage you to connect with the team at Achieva, connect with the Invest Project team at Achieva. We ask you to think about what is one action that you can take tomorrow as you think about this work. Maybe it's reaching out to Amber, maybe it's reaching out to Jack, finding out how your employer, how your company can work with Achieva and to work with these folks who could be a great asset to your company, to your organization. So I want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you so much for your attendance. I want to say a very big thank you to the Achieva team, to Amber, to Jack, to Kathleen, and also to Nicole. We appreciate your time that you took with us today. And we also want to say thank you to our audience for coming today. As we said, this has been recorded. Everybody who registered will get a follow-up email with the recording. We will also answer all of the questions that were submitted and make sure that you also have an FAQ and an answer to those. And coming up, we have our summer speaker series in August that it will be interfaith dialogues, building understanding across belief systems. And then we will go back to our regular Lunch and Learn series in September. So as always, we encourage you to connect with Vibrant Pittsburgh. Please connect with the Achieva team. If you have any other questions, please let us know. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Achieva. And we will we'll be back next month, but we'll wish you a great Wednesday and a great rest of your week. Thank you, everyone.